I'm sitting here with Dr. Farsalinas, and I know that Estonian Vapers would like to know his thoughts about situation in Estonia and so on. So I have a couple of questions for you, if it's okay. The first question is, what are your thoughts about cigarette situation in Estonia?
Well, I had the opportunity yesterday to address the Commission of the Estonian Parliament about their thoughts and their intentions for further regulations in the further to the European Union laws concerning cigarettes. And unfortunately, when they talk about regulations, they talk about restrictions. So, as I said, I don't understand why any European country would want to add more restrictions on the already implemented law and regulation on e-cigarettes through the European Union TPD, which in my opinion is a good regulation with some major problems like the volume limits on the bottles and on the atomizers and the nicotine limit. But besides that, there are also some good things in the law. But the European Union countries are the only countries in the world where e-cigarettes have some regulation without banning them. So, in my opinion, every country should feel lucky for having a regulation. And all the research and all the evidence suggests that there is no need for any additional regulation and restrictions. You know that the European Union position during the meeting at the World Health Organization last year in India was that we already have a regulation and we are not willing to apply anything more. The regulation is enough. Okay. And that was the unified position of the whole European Union, because every member state of the European Union participates in this WHO meeting. The problem is that the restrictions that the Estonian government is planning to implement will cause serious problems and are almost a ban on the product. Because when you want to ban flavors, and you know that the vast majority of cigarette users are using flavors besides tobacco, and when you want to apply an excise tax, and you know that when you are talking about a cigarette, you are talking about a less harmful alternative, a harm reduction product, and by definition you have to create a competitive advantage for the cigarette versus the tobacco cigarette. Yeah. So the decision or the intention to ban flavors is going to be catastrophic, and it's going to have very bad public health consequences, while it will not have any positive effect. The intentions are to protect kids.
Yes.
And the thinking behind this intention to ban flavors is that flavors are attractive to kids. Well, I don't know any adult who doesn't like chocolate, for example.
I like it.
Most adults like also flavors. In fact, there is no human being, whether it's an adult or a kid, that prefer anything flavorless. Yeah. Whether it's food, whether it's a drink or anything. So flavors are needed, and flavors are used by adult e-cigarette users. And flavors exist to satisfy the demand by the adult vapers. We've shown that through our research back in 2013. It's not something new. So, and the other issue is that there is not really a problem with e-cigarette using kids. There is experimentation, and we've seen that everywhere. But the latest studies are showing that this experimentation is not transformed into regular use. Recently, it was a few weeks ago, a study published from the UK analyzing 60,000 adolescents from the UK. They did find experimentation that it exists, but they said that this is not transformed into regular use. Regular use among never smoking adolescents remains extremely low, but use of e-cigarettes by smoking adolescents may be a getaway out of smoking. Okay. And the regulation is going to limit that. Okay. The regulation to ban flavors.
They're also saying that if youngsters are starting to use e-cigarettes, they might convert to conventional cigarette use. It's one of their
And
arguments.
of course, there is no evidence suggesting anything like that is happening. It's a theoretical concern like everything else. And of course, theoretical concerns are needed because we need to monitor the situation through research to see if this is happening or not. So yes, it's a legitimate concern, but there is no evidence suggesting that anything like this is happening.
And the lawsuit based on evidence, not.
Of course, and ideally on evidence within the country. So why are they intending to create such a law without evaluating what's happening in the country?
Yeah.
So where is the need for this law? There is no justification right now that this law should be implemented, that these restrictions should be implemented. But there are more problems. It's not only that. The problem is that what are vapers going to do when they will not be able to find any flavors besides tobacco? Some of them will inevitably relapse back to smoking.
This
Some
is very
of
bad.
them, of course, there is no doubt about it. Some of them are going to find flavors elsewhere. That means illegal import, that means creation of a black market, but even more worryingly, and more worryingly for health, is using food flavors, because the government cannot ban flavors used for the food industry. But the problem with food flavors is that many of them are dissolved in vegetable oil, because you can use vegetable oil in your food products, it's not a problem. But you shouldn't inhale vegetable oil.
What happens if you do that?
The lung cannot accept inhalation of lipid molecules, and the lung reacts by creating inflammatory reaction because it considers the lipid molecule as a foreign substance. So it can cause disease. It's very bad and it's very risky. No one should inhale oils, vegetable oil, through a flavoring, because the flavorings used for cigarettes are dissolved in PG. So when a vapor buys a flavoring concentrate, it's a concentrate composed of 95% PG and 5% flavoring. That's the flavoring concentrate.
Yeah.
For food flavors, some of them are dissolved in vegetable oil, not in PG. And you shouldn't use that. But I'm sure that many vapors will try to find flavors through the food flavoring market. It's going to be a very risky thing to do, very bad for health. And the law is going to force some of the vapors to do that. And that's very unfortunate. So I think that the Estonian government and the committee should rethink very carefully this approach.
Are there any dangers of using PG or VG that are not medical grade BG and VG?
Well, yes.
What are the dangers?
The dangers are related to the impurities present there. That's the reason why even in the food industry, they always use pharmaceutical grade materials. For all chemicals for human consumption, you can find both industrial grade materials because they are not used for human consumption, and food or pharmaceutical grade. The reason is, of course, that the highest the purity, the more expensive the product. So for cases where you don't have any human consumption, for example, PG is used to de-ice airplanes in the airports.
Yeah, I know.
Well, in that case, no one is consuming the PG, so there is no need to use the more expensive, highest purity PG, and that's why they use industrial grade. Okay. So for any purposes that don't involve human consumption, there is no need to use the more expensive high purity material. You use a lower purity material because that's what you need.
Okay.
But for someone who is inhaling PG and VG, of course, there is no way that they should try to use industrial grade PG. But the problem with the regulation is not the PG and VG, but it's the flavorings. The flavorings can create a lot of problems, and unfortunately, I think they're not going to solve any problem. So there is no reason for such a regulation. And for the excise tax, I don't have to comment on anything. I'm just going to say one thing. Taxing the most popular smoking cessation tool and aid in Europe, because in Europe right now the e-cigarette is the most popular smoking cessation aid. When you ask smokers, what have you tried in your efforts to quit smoking? With the exception of nothing, trying by myself, which is the most popular method, but from all other aids, whether it's nicotine replacement therapies, pharmaceutical medications, psychological support, anything else you can imagine, e-cigarette is number one right now. So taxing the most popular smoking cessation aid, it sounds a bit like as a paradox.
It's like a harm reduction product. So
yes, so you're punishing someone who wants to try a less harmful alternative.
It would be stupid to tax seatbelts and helmets and condoms.
Yes.
Is it the same thing?
It is exactly the same thing. It's like adding an excise tax in something like helmets.
It's crazy. Okay, what are your thoughts about yesterday's meeting with the Social Affairs Committee?
Well, it was an interesting and long meeting because I had to present quite a lot of things. And of course, I couldn't present the whole literature, but I selected a few what I consider the most important parts. I tried to make the presentation with as little technical terms as possible because the regulators are not scientists and they cannot understand a very technical presentation with a lot of scientific language. So I think that the presentation was pretty clear. I'm not sure if they are willing to listen. So that's what will define the outcome. It depends mostly on whether they are willing to listen rather than on what the science says, because the science is pretty clear. There are no ifs, buts, or anything else in science, at least until now. But you know, everything depends on their willingness to listen to the evidence and to use the evidence in order to create the regulation. Because we can discuss and we can invent as many theoretical concerns as you want for e-cigarettes and for anything else.
But you need proof.
But the thing is, what does the evidence show? Because you know, when we say we need proof, this has two aspects. One is that we don't have any evidence at all, so we don't know. But in this case, it's not like that. We have a lot of evidence of what's going on. So why not use this evidence when you create the regulation? It's not the lack of knowledge. We have a lot of knowledge, but they don't use it.
But they're saying that we don't know what happens after 40 years. Perhaps we're all going to die or something like that.
For everything, I can tell you that no one can predict what's going to happen within 40 years. And for anything. But that's not an excuse to create bans or restrictions. You know, new medications that are developed and are coming out in the market, no one knows what's going to happen if someone is taking this medication for 20 years. But no one is thinking of banning it. What they do is they market the product, the medication, after some research, but not 40 or 30 or 20 years research. And they do post-marketing surveillance, which means the product is used in the market, is sold and is used in the market, and we are monitoring to see if something bad is happening to the people who are using the medication. That's how it works for everything, for consumer products, for medications, for everything. It is impossible for any product consumed by humans to have long-term epidemiological studies. It cannot happen, and it has never happened in the past. So why should e-cigarettes be any different than anything else? Okay. It doesn't make any sense. The argument that we don't have long-term evidence is totally unjustifiable and irrational. Of course we will need long-term evidence, but this is not an excuse to apply restrictions because it has never happened with anything else.
And the restrictions are supporting basically tobacco market.
The restrictions, I'm sure that it's not the intention of the government, of course, but they need to understand that these restrictions, which are going to restrict the popularity of cigarettes among adult smokers, is of course indirectly and unintentionally protecting tobacco cigarette sales, because a smoker who is discouraged from using e-cigarettes because they are expensive, because he cannot find the flavors that he wants, and because it makes it more difficult for a smoker to use an e-cigarette, well, what do you think he or she is going to do? He's going to just keep on smoking. So basically, it's an indirect protection of the tobacco cigarette market. And I'm sure the government does not have the intention to protect the tobacco cigarette market, but they need to understand that these regulations are in indirect protection of this market.
Okay. What do you think that we as vapers can do differently or better in Estonia?
Well, my opinion is that every government, almost every government in the world, do not have a clear understanding on what is the impact of e-cigarettes on the life on the life of a smoker who manages to quit smoking with e-cigarettes. There is a lot of misconception, and I think that what the vapers need to do is share their story
With government?
with the government, with the officials, with the parliamentary members, with the media, share their story of how e-cigarettes change their life, if they change their life, how they manage to quit smoking with e-cigarettes, how they're using the e-cigarette, what's the impact of flavors in their experience, how flavors have helped them. We did a survey in 2013 with 4,500 vapers.
And also about the price differences when the price is
Of
going
course,
to rise.
how everything has affected and has helped them quit smoking, and what's going to change if they are deprived of flavors, if the product becomes too expensive, what are the risks, what's going to happen with their e-cigarette use, and what's going to happen with a potential relapse back to smoking. I think that the vapers need to present their stories to the regulators. I think that's the only thing that they should do. They should be active because they will be hugely affected by these regulations. So they need to explain what problems are going to come out from these regulations.
I'm seeing that the big
They need to be informed, first of all. I'm not sure that every vapor is informed about what's happening right now in Estonia.
Yeah.
The first thing is that they need to understand what are the implications, what are the intentions, and what's this going to mean for their daily habit. And they need to share their stories and also share the prospects coming out from this restrictive regulation. They need to provide this information to the regulators because the regulators don't know how e-cigarette use affects the smoking habit. They don't know how many people who were heavy smokers have managed to quit with e-cigarettes. They don't know how they evolved from being a smoker to becoming a vapor. The vapers need to provide this information.
And I think they have power because when we did this petition, we got almost 5,000
Yes.
signatures, and it opened the doors for us for extra communication with government. And thanks to that petition, you had the chance to present your evidence yesterday.
Yes, exactly. It is very important that the vapers become active. The vapers don't have any financial interest in e-cigarettes. On the contrary, they are paying for their products, so they cannot be accused of supporting their finances or anything like that. They have the right to protect their health. They have the right to defend their health. They have the right to access to an alternative, substantially less harmful product, and no one can deny that right to them. You know, it's a WHO human rights issue. You know, the
Yes.
Ottawa Charter in 1986 was about empowerment in health, and the declaration was that people should have all the necessary tools available to protect their health, and e-cigarette is one of these tools.
Okay, I want to come back to the proposals from the government. We didn't discuss the pushing e-cigarette users to smoking rooms. What are your thoughts about that?
It's unethical and probably illegal. You are exposing an e-cigarette user to the harmful effects of passive smoking.
But they're saying that places who have cigarette smoking rooms can also create special room for
If
e-cigarettes.
they create a special room for e-cigarettes, that's fine. But implementing to a vapor to go to a smoking room and forcing him to do that is going to have legal implications. A vapor can go to the courts and say that this is forcing me to be exposed to harmful chemicals. It's a very risky situation. And you know, every owner of a shop can decide for himself whether or herself whether they will allow
Or workplace
vaping or
owners.
not, or workplace owners. Yes, that's different. You know, the decision of every single owner. I mean, like some restaurants ask you to go there only wearing a tie. You know, you can't blame him for that. That's his decision.
Yeah.
The same can happen with vaping, but an implementation from a government law, and even worse, the forcing a vapor to go into a smoking room is basically forcing you to be exposed to harm.
Yeah.
And it cannot happen.
It
cannot
might be
happen.
illegal.
Yeah, you can tell him go out and vape, but you can't tell him go to a smoking room and vape.
Yeah, of course.
It will have serious implications. It's like telling you that you should be exposed to the harmful effects of smoking while you don't smoke. And it's not only that, it's also that you are exposed to your previous habit, which will increase the likelihood of relapsing. But that's not really a health issue. The health issue is that you will be inhaling tobacco cigarette smoke, and you will be forced to do that.
Okay. The next question, I think we already discussed it. What are the main risks of limiting e-cigarettes? I think we already discussed it, or do you want to add something?
Yeah, I think that we discussed the main risks. The black market for flavors, the use of inappropriate flavors, the relapsing back to smoking. And of course, I should add that this will, of course, discourage more smokers from switching to vaping. So that's an additional risk. At the same time, I don't think that it's protecting anyone because there is not really a problem anywhere with the cigarettes. The kids use, yes, it's happening as experimentation. It's not happening as regular use. We don't see any getaway to smoking effects. Of course, we need to monitor the situation. Of course, we need to be careful. Of course, we need to educate adolescents that they shouldn't use any cigarette. We should also, I think, encourage smoking adolescents to quit, and if e-cigarettes are needed. You know, I've witnessed parents buying e-cigarettes for their kids who have started smoking. And to be honest, I would prefer my kid to vape rather than smoke.
Me too.
Of course, ideally, they should not use anything, but I would prefer vaping from smoking. So, but the law already exists for banning sales to youngsters. So, what more can you do? I mean, are you going to basically ignore the needs of adult vapers just to protect an extremely small minority of e-cigarette adolescent users? And you know that adolescents are prone to trying things, and the more risky you present something, the more likely it is that they're going to try it. You know, it's a matter of typical psychology of adolescents.
And what do you think about online sales ban that they want to implement in Estonia?
The online sales ban, I understand again that the intention is to protect kids.
Yeah, and we have a solution for that to make a technical solution so kids even can't see the products before they are not age verified.
Yes, age verification is a solution, of course, and banning of online sales will create problems for people who don't have access to vape shops. Vape shops are not available. You know, one of the problems that we are facing in the tobacco epidemic, because it's a worldwide epidemic, is that tobacco cigarettes are available everywhere.
Yeah,
And
in every gas station basically.
And e-cigarettes are not available everywhere. Yeah. And with the ban on the online sales, you are further restricting accessibility. And the government should do the exact opposite. Increase and improve access to the less harmful alternative and limit access to the most lethal nicotine-containing product, which is the tobacco cigarette. So instead of doing that, governments throughout the world, it's not a problem of Estonia, they are allowing legally the sales of tobacco cigarettes everywhere, and they are applying huge restrictions to e-cigarettes for no reason. Yeah. It doesn't make sense. It is a paradox.
Okay. I have one last question from one vapor. Why did you choose this field of research? And
it was purely coincidental. It was a coincidence that one day, two friends of mine who were smokers sent me pictures of themselves vaping. And that was in 2011. And at that time I knew that e-cigarettes existed, but I had no idea how they work, what they are, what they contain, so I was basically ignorant. My first reaction was that that was a waste of money and useless effort, and they should quit using medications. So I offered them to prescribe to them some medications to quit. These guys, just by seeing my reaction, they kept on sending me pictures of themselves, photos of themselves vaping, and that's how it triggered, my interest. And that's how it started. One of them has quit smoking and is now an e-cigarette user, and the other one has reduced cigarette consumption, although not completely quit, and is a dual user, both tobacco and e-cigarettes. And that's basically how it started back in 2011.
But what keeps you going now?
Well, after that, I said, let's see what the e-cigarette is. So I contacted Vapers, and there was an e-cigarette forum in Greece, and that's how I was educated, basically. And what kept me going is that I found this research field extremely exciting. Even this controversy and this disagreement is very exciting. So you're never bored with e-cigarette research. And there are still many things that we want to study and evaluate, and so it's a very exciting field of research, and it's a new field of research. So that's why it's so interesting.
Okay. Do you want anything to add?
No, I think that I just want to say that vapers should be more active. We've seen that the action from the consumer groups or from the groups affected by regulation works. It has worked in the past for intravenous drug users. It has worked in the past for HIV victims. It works. And it's about a health-related issue. It's not about having the ability to buy a luxurious car or having a nice home with a lot of luxuries or anything. It's about health. And you know that the motto that was created by HIV patients was nothing for us without us. So you can't decide for us without listening to us, basically. Without us, and that was for the HIV patients, and now this is for the vapers, actively participating and actively presenting their views and showing how any regulation is going to affect them. That's why I said that the vapers should be extremely active. It is something that happened during the EU TPD implementation, and it is something that worked very, very well, Okay. There was a lot of pressure from the vaping community to the regulators in the European Commission, and it has helped improve the EU law because the initial proposals were a complete disaster. The initial proposals in the EU were ban on flavors and 4 milligrams nicotine limit, and that was in 2013. A 4 milligram nicotine limit.
4 milligram only?
Yes.
Wow,
the 4 milligram limit in 2013 would be disastrous.
Because
the devices could not generate so much aerosol. Okay. So even today it would be a disaster, let's be honest, but vapers helped a lot to improve the regulation.
Okay. So I want to thank you for your talk and coming here and representing your evidence to the government, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.